Good morning, students. This is video lecture 327 that goes along with the blog post letters from World War I. So today is a little bit different, and I try to make Fridays just a bit different from the rest of the day in that Fridays are generally interactive days with primary sources. Last Friday we looked at the interactive timeline for World War I, and today we are going to be looking at actual letters written by participants of World War I, letters back home, letters to other regiments, and letters that the National Archives have compiled in the years since World War I for historical research purposes. And this is an activity that I think that you would appreciate, and I hope brings some more of the human element back to World War I. World War I is a little bit different than the wars that came before it, especially in American history, when the sheer loss of life is so great that it almost seems that these human participants, these human soldiers, are viewed not as people or not image bearers of God, not seen within the dignity of humanity, but more as a resource, as a tool, as a pawn. And that's one major critique of World War I, is that the humanity, especially after the introduction of chemical warfare, but the sheer inhumanity of the devastation, the depth of the mental scarring from those who survived, it is an incredibly traumatic piece of European and world history. Now, we have surpassed now 100 years since this fighting takes place. So when we think of horrific world wars, our minds are generally drawn to the more recent World War II. And that makes sense. There's a recency bias. It's closer to when we are currently living now. But what I hope to illustrate by introducing these letters and getting you acquainted almost with the people who wrote them is to remind you that these are not resources, not just soldiers, but fathers, sons, brothers, uncles, nephews. There are women that are right there tending to the front line, and they are mothers, they are sisters. There are spies that are going back and forth. There are generals worried about losing the entire war on behalf of the armies that they govern. You've got real human raw emotion. Some of these letters are written as sort of to soothe the people that are left behind and the home front, to ensure the people that they love, oh, I'm doing well. And we know that through our study of how gritty some of these battles can be, that's probably not the case. One thing that nobody was in World War I was fine. We've got some letters that exist in these archives that are merely, hey bro, I know you're fighting on the home front, but I just did the keyboard motion. That shows how old I am, how young I am, really. Hey bro, I noticed that you're still fighting on the front. That's great. Haven't heard from you in a while, but I wondered, I'm not getting any money anymore, so could you pay my, so we've got basic bills that need to be paid, and we've got soldiers trying to reassure their loved ones that they're okay. You've got their loved ones trying to reassure themselves that their soldiers are okay. And you have some people that you can tell they feel it as their duty to catalog the events of the war as they see them, to sort of preserve and honor the people that they're fighting alongside and the events that they're experiencing. Some people have a perspective. I don't think I'm one of them, but sometimes, maybe with this coronavirus, we can have this perspective, but to be able to look around and say, this is a time that will be studied later on. This is a time that will be crucial to history. And they write these letters down. I saw this, I saw this, I saw this, I saw this. And it becomes a crucial resource for historians later on to see how these people viewed their own experiences. When we look at people's writings of their experiences, we necessarily have to address that there may be a potential bias with the information. And that bias is not anything that's good or anything that's bad. Bias is just a thing, it's neutral. However, you have to interpret what this person is saying through the lens of who is this person? What experiences are they bringing into this? Why might they say the way that why might they say what they're saying, and why might they feel the way they're feeling? And then, can I trust this as fact or an interpretation of events? And what I mean by an interpretation of events can be illustrated by one of the more famous examples of perspective. For example, imagine you're in a room. This room has two doors, one here and one here. And in this room, somebody, by some marvelous feat, has shoved an elephant within this room. And this room is so small, that elephant is so large that it literally takes up the entirety of the room, saving only small spaces by each door. Now, if you have two people that step to either door, they look in from their doors, and you ask them to see, what do you see inside that room? Can you describe that elephant? Now, because the elephant is so squished in that room, the person in door number 1 will look in and say, oh, well, an elephant is gray. It's got a long tail with a little bit of tufted fur at the end, huge back feet, and it doesn't seem to have a head. You go into the second door, the person looking at the front of the elephant, squished in there, can't see anything else, says, oh, okay, well, the elephant has big ears, it's gray, it's got a long trunk, there's 2 legs, it doesn't seem to have any feet. And so, which one of those is right? Which one of those is wrong? That's perspective. Obviously, neither one of the 2 people answering, what do you see? What is an elephant like? Are saying anything that is incorrect. They are both describing the scene as they are able to see it. And so the circumstance that surrounds their particular interpretation of that event determines necessarily how they feel about it, what they are able to understand. Obviously, an elephant is a full-fledged thing, so you have to look at it from many different perspectives. Say if person 1 had gone to person 2, they might have been able to put together a complete elephant image anyway. You have to look at an event from many, many, many different angles to have a full-fledged, complete picture. Similarly, these letters are one picture of the war. So we look at these sources. We look at them as exactly what they are, crucial, but we don't look at them as only the information. Make sure that you pay attention specifically to the humanity of the men and women that are involved in this conflict. Let's honor them by not allowing them to become mere tools or resources or even numbers and casualties and survivals lists on the page. They are people. They are human image bearers of God. They are entitled to dignity. And so let's see if we can give that to them by reading these letters and thoroughly trying to imagine what it would be like to be living, breathing, fighting essentially for your country at this time. You only have one question, but it gets divided into 3 parts for your assignment this week. I do not want you to overlook Part C. Part C is, what is the most amazing fact or detail that you experience in reading your 5 letters? You could write any detail you wanted in that letter. I expect you to actually show me, like, why did this amaze you? Why was this important to you? Why did this stand out? If it's a mundane thing, like, I was really amazed that this brother wrote to his sister about, hey, make sure that the boy you're dating is cool or whatnot. I was really amazed that in the midst of all of this, he's thinking about his sister. That was amazing to me. Make sure you explain why you picked the detail that you picked. Also, in order for credit to be assigned for this assignment, you must list out exactly which 5 of the letters you chose to read. You can choose more than 5, but you have to list out 5. If you answer these questions and you give me these answers, but you don't list out your 5 that you referenced, I'm not giving you credit, because as far as I know, you could be writing those letters. I don't know, because I do not have the information from which to pull these perspective grades. And so make sure that you list out you list out the assignment, and you make sure you listen to all of the instructions. Some of you have a bit of trouble in just answering part of the instruction, usually the first part, which makes me think you don't read the second part of the instruction. Don't be that person. Don't be the cautionary tale. Be the person who reads every part of the assignment. This should be fun. I look forward to hearing your perspective and hearing what you think about these letters. I will see you, next week when we come back to talk about chemical warfare, unrestricted submarine warfare, and finally, maybe even the United States entering this war. I think it'll be fun. I'll see you guys later.